Hello, you're listening to a Heroes Welcome episode 4. Thanks for tuning in. My name is Wes, and with me to talk everything in the world of Overwatch, Andrew. How are you doing without Overwatch, Andrew?
I'm getting by. The struggle is real, but soon enough, it will be over.
Yeah, man, just a few more days ago. Let's go straight into news. So we got a little bit of stats from Blizzard about the open beta. A whole 9.7 million people played in that 1 week.
Yeah, we had, some news coming in saying that it was a lot of people, a lot more than, they probably even expected. But 9.7 million, it's a huge number.
Put that in perspective, as more than all the other FPS games that came out in the last year or so. Not going to say any names, though.
Yeah,
but more than
names,
them.
But crushing the competition.
So I didn't feel like 9.7 million people. I was playing the games. They seemed pretty smooth. Did you have any problems?
Yeah, I didn't really have any problems. I mean, things ran really smoothly. Other than the whole Australian server thing.
Occasionally, Occasionally,
pretty smooth. I didn't have any disconnects, anything weird like that, really.
Yeah, it went pretty smooth. Some more stats we got on the assault maps. And we talk about assault maps in here, talking about assault maps, because those seem to be the most maybe imbalanced maps in the game currently.
Yeah, I mean, that's what a lot of people are finding, is that they feel like the assault maps are definitely the real one-sided, the maps.
Right, so some stats. The attackers are not as successful. That's the stats we're getting, right? So Temple of Anubis is an assault map. The attackers are being successful 48.9% of the time. So it's a lot closer to the 50% perfect balance than people are talking about.
They did talk about it in the past, and it's a lot better than people were, assuming. I think they felt like it was a lot worse than it actually turned out to be. I mean, I'm pretty happy. 48.9. It's really close to 50.
Right. So that was Temple of Anubis, 48.9%. Hanamura, another assault map, 48.8%, and Volskaya, they told us 46.5%. So Volskaya had the most discrepancy there.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen in some of the tournament play, we've seen a big discrepancy specifically with Volskaya, and I think it has a lot to do with the way the map is laid out. So you really get a pretty big swing on Volskaya. It's one of those things where you either play really well or, you play really poorly, transitioning, I think, from the first to second point. So I feel like, especially new players, when they got into it, they didn't really know how to attack the second point. Second point was really hard for new players. So,
right. It's also important to point out that this is across all of the skill spans, right? So
right.
I think what we'd see if you break it down is the more advanced players have a much more successful attempt attacking, and then the newer players have a difficulty attacking.
Yeah, it's definitely the lower skill, the newer players who are having, I think, the majority of the issue with it. So, I mean, it's still, it's still that way even in the higher tier, but not nearly as much as with the new players coming in.
Right. So some more blue posts from the community manager on the official forums, that is. We're talking about they're talking about cheating.
Yeah, I mean,
hot topic.
I heard a little bit about this in the open beta from players, several people saying that they had, found people cheating, using aimbot and the such. But, I haven't heard a whole lot about it. It's not been something that's been talked about in length. But the blue post, they did talk about cheating and their philosophy as far as, cheating goes.
Right, so I think this is pretty important. So some people thought that Blizzard didn't really handle cheaters very seriously, like, oh, they exist, and then they might use examples from other games. So we haven't heard Blizzard come out and specifically talk about the subject. So it's nice to have them come out and say, this is where we stand. We're pretty strict. If we ever find anyone cheating, they will be permanently banned. It's not going to be a temporary situation.
Yeah, I mean, I was really happy to see them post this, because it really hits home with a lot of FPS players, and I think it really states their position pretty firmly. I mean, their whole philosophy, play nice, play fair, I think it fits perfectly with this game, and I just hope that they do enforce it like they talk about.
Right, so the community manager came out and said when they do catch cheaters, they will be permanently banned. They're not going to disclose how they found the cheaters, or they're not going to post their names up. These are the people cheating, and this is what they're going on. But they did let us know that when the game comes back up live on the launch, there will be a new report feature, and cheating is going to be one of them. So normal way you would do that is just right-click the player's name, and it should be a report feature, and cheating will be one of those options.
So they're going to have that report feature as well. You can also, email them. hacks@blizzard.com is another thing they talked about.
That's the best way. If you think someone's cheating, just emailing them at hacks@blizzard.com. That's going to be the best place.
Right. I mean, they're going to get probably so many reports, especially when the game first comes up. I feel like, there might be a small period of time where nothing, but I think a lot of people are going to have to find out, like they mentioned later on in the post, that a lot of people are going to assume someone is cheating, and they're going to find out that it's not necessarily the case. So, I mean, just like with anything, they're going to get tons and tons of reports. They're going to have to look into them. I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to take action just because you, for one instance, felt someone was cheating. So it's another thing that they talk about, things to keep in mind when you are reporting or when you're thinking about reporting a person. They mentioned that the in-game camera, especially with the play the game as well, things like that, the fidelity is not quite what it is in the actual playing of the game. So, just to keep in mind when you're looking at a replay, that it's not necessarily completely accurate to what you're seeing.
Yeah, it can be misleading.
Yeah, it can be very misleading. So bugs as well. I mean, they talk about that. Bugs are going to happen. They're going to be in the game. They're going to obviously try and fix everything that they can, but it's inescapable. Bugs happen. They're in games. It's just something that you keep in mind.
And some players are really good, and players aim differently. A lot of people practice flick shotting, and their aim techniques might not look natural or so. I mean, these are things that are, they've learned over so many years playing different FPS games.
And a lot of people are unaware of that. A lot of people are going to be coming into this game very new to the genre, FPS in general, as well as, just this game specifically. So experience plays a big part in it. Some people who've been playing FPSs for their entire life, who have, tens of years playing FPSs, tons of muscle memory practice. I've seen plenty of play of the game replays that look very slappy, like the camera's moving really quickly to the position. It's just, a matter of muscle memory and experience. So that's also something to definitely keep in mind when you are thinking about reporting.
Right, so that's cheating. There's not much to say about it.
Well,
nobody should do it.
Definitely not. We're not advocating anybody cheat, and we definitely want to advocate what Blizzard is advocating, that, you want to play nice, you want to play fair. There's no reason. I never understand the mentality of cheating in any game and wanting to win in that way. So I definitely don't advocate that. So please do not cheat, ladies and gentlemen. But they did talk a little bit about the fact that anybody being reported or, using any of the play of the games as, replays or any of that kind of stuff is not going to be the sole way that the sole evidence that they use to verify cheating. So they didn't talk at length about the other ways in which they're going to verify it, but they will take into account the report. They will look into it, and they're going to deploy, I'm sure, multiple different ways of verifying before they actually permaban someone. So.
Right, and I just saw a job posting go up by Blizzard looking for someone who had experience in cheating. I just saw that.
Oh.
And it's also important to point out that when you have LAN tournaments, that's like the ultimate test because you cannot cheat. Right, and we are going to be seeing more LAN tournaments. We already have 2 scheduled the week of release, which is amazing. But these LAN tournaments, people are not going to be able to cheat. So, it's going to really divide, separate the cheaters, right?
Right. So you're gonna find a lot of that being tested in the LAN tournaments. So it's definitely going to be the ultimate test for that, and I look forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's just good to know that they're going to take it seriously, and obviously. It seems they're pushing the game towards an esport direction, and you need certain criteria to be in place, and that's one of them.
You definitely don't want any kind of cheating to be looming in the background of any kind of esports. So they definitely want to hit that pretty hard. So
right. So going on this last week, we had a digital comic come out, issue number 4. It's titled "A Better World." It's all about Symmetra, and we learned a lot about the world of Overwatch.
Yeah, of all the comics that we've seen in the past, this one was a little weird for me. I don't know how you felt. Maybe it was, the manner in which I read it. I think I didn't really take as much time to digest it as I did with some of the others, and it was kind of broken up. I had some other stuff going on, so I kind of, split up my reading of it a little bit here and there. So I don't know. What did you think about this comic overall?
I thought it was good. I think it's cool that they have different artists doing all the issues so far.
The art's always really well done. Hats off to the art team doing the comics because it's always really good. I love the art in this comic as well. I don't know. Maybe it's just that Symmetra's not really in the forefront of my favorite characters, but I definitely thought that some of the other comics did a much better job.
I mean, it's kind of interesting. She kind of has like this hard light technology, right? She's able to craft things. I guess that's how they explain her making these turrets, right? That she actually uses hard light to craft material things in the world. And I mean, it's interesting. We learn a lot about the world, a little bit of the politics of the world, where the world is at that point, 60 years in the future.
And I had a lot of fun with learning the ins and outs of her a little bit. I think where I kind of, I don't know. There were some things that they really did well. They did kind of that cliffhanger ending that they kind of had going on was very interesting. I don't know. I had to read it several times. The ending it kind of caught me a little bit off guard there. But like I said, all in all, great job. I enjoyed it.
Right. So you can check it out, comic.playoverwatch.com. We'll have a link in the notes below. And also news, animated short's going to be coming out tomorrow as of this recording.
Yeah, this is the one I've been waiting for, and I'm sure I'm going to have a blast with this one. Genji and Hanzo, both two of probably my favorite characters in the game, both gameplay-wise and lore-wise. So it's going to be awesome. Right,
so we know that's titled Dragons. It's going to be about the Shimada clan and the history of conflict between the brothers, if they are brothers, spoiler alert.
Yeah, when they first announced that their connection being brothers and all that, I think everybody was super excited for that. It seems like that's always the case when it comes to feuding people in a lot of comics and other lore situations, but I don't know, just something about the way that they did it is pretty awesome, and they feel like brothers. Like, you play the game and you just hear some of the back and forth between them, bar none, some of the best voice going on in the game, definitely.
Right, so a lot of people question, doing most of the storytelling elements outside the game, and it's crazy to think. I was at BlizzCon last year when they announced that they were a little trailer where they were brothers, and just everyone erupted. It was crazy. We didn't even know who these people are. We haven't even played the game. They're just brand new characters to us, and we care so much about them already.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it has to do with, like I said, the way that they did it, where they just had the clip going on between the two, Hanzo and Genji, and just their interaction, their talking, revealing this about them, instead of, our typical thing where we just have the game creators or the story writers telling us about their connection. I think it brought it out in a whole totally different way, so...
Right, so you definitely want to catch that May 16th, 10 a.m. Pacific time over here on the West Coast. Definitely don't want to miss that. If you haven't seen all the animated shorts, you definitely want to do yourself a service.
Yeah, check them out definitely as soon as you can. They are amazing, but definitely waiting for this one. It's going to be awesome.
All right, so let's get into our strategy segment. So episode 4, this episode, we're going to start doing a character summary. So we're going to pick a character. We're going to delve deep into who that is, how his abilities work, get a little bit of a strategy conversation in.
And we felt this was a perfect time to do this, a little bit of a deep dive into each character, being that we have some time between now and the game releasing. I know we talked about several characters. This week we're going to be delving into Winston, probably my favorite tank. Very high mobility character, so I was glad that we started with Winston. Had a lot of fun playing Winston and love talking about him.
Right, so our strategy today is going to be all about Winston. And if you don't know the character names very well, because I know a lot of people don't know the names, he is the guy he's not a guy. He's an ape. Very big ape. He comes from the moon. He's a scientist.
Yeah, it's very hard to miss. If he's in the game, you will see him. He will be jumping all over the place. He will be the one bugging the crap out of everybody.
Right, he was in the very original cinematic that we saw in the very first cinematic short. He was also in that as well. A pretty big character.
He's a big character. I mean, I think they've said before several times, specifically Metzen, that he is probably one of the more important characters as far as story-wise going into the game. So.
Right, so let's talk about the basics. Winston is classified as a tank. He fulfills that role, which means that he has more health than your average character. He has 500 total, which 100 of it is armor, which we talked a little bit in the last episode.
Right, and so it makes a big difference compared to health, definitely. He fulfills the role of a tank very well, but a little bit differently than some of the other tanks. So he is a bigger character. Usually the tanks are bigger, they're more noticeable, they're more in your face, and again, they have more health. But as a tank, Winston is not so much a damage dealing tank. He can definitely damage with the best of them in the good situations, in the right situation, but he's definitely more of a harass kind of tank. He's more in and out, in your face, moving people off the payload, moving them off the point, moving people around, just messing with the other team for sure.
Right, so let's talk about his main weapon. It's called a Tesla cannon. It has a 100 ammo, which turns out to be about 5 seconds. It's like a channeled cleave of a cone effect. So a lot of people give Winston a bad time because he doesn't require much aiming skills.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't require much aiming, but it's definitely, some skill to using it in
Yeah, you have to be facing the right way.
Right, you have to be facing the right way. And
that takes skill.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not the hardest aiming ability, but it can be definitely used in a right way and in a wrong way. So
yeah, don't underestimate the Tesla cannon. By the way, I mean, playing Winston, it goes for all characters, but putting yourself in the right circumstances, in the right situations, it could do great damage. I mean, if you're able to cleave 2, 3, even more people within your primary fire, just holding down left click, you're doing tons of damage.
It does work, ladies and gentlemen. It does work.
So it's pretty short range. So. I mean, it's very visual. You'll be able to see when you're shocking them with your cannon.
Yeah, it's very visual, and you will see it. It's one of those things where, because you don't have to aim, it's very good for certain high mobility characters, and because it doesn't do a lot of damage single target, it is definitely better against some of those lower health characters like Tracer and Genji and the sort. But
right, it turns out to be about 54 damage per second.
Right, it's somewhere in that range, damage per second. So
yes, that's one of the weaknesses of Winston is the long range capabilities. He has to be pretty close to them.
Yeah, he has to be pretty close.
But he has a good kit for that, though.
He has a very good kit for that, and he's built that way for a reason. If he was able to have long range, it would be a struggle. He's already a very good tank, so. His shift ability is what we're talking about with his mobility, his jump pack. So his jump pack is pretty much the source of all his mobility, and it's going to be the key factor in getting in close to your enemy. So
right, so jump pack, you'll lunge through the air. You actually do damage when you land. A lot of players don't realize this, but when you land, if you hit enemies, it does do damage. It could do up to 50 damage. It depends on how close you are.
Yeah, it has a little bit of fall off, and if you watch any of the high rated play, you will see some really good Winstons, and they will actually use their jump pack as damage. Instead of leaping from a huge distance to get to a target, they'll use it in that way, but they'll also use it when they're close to the person, just to jump very short range and add that damage. And if you're good at aiming that, you can definitely add that 50 damage. It's going to help you out a lot.
Right, and cooldown has been changed throughout the beta, but right now it's at 6 seconds, which is really, really good, solid short cooldown.
Yeah, it's a really good cooldown. It's up when you need it. I don't find myself, waiting for it to come up a lot. You have, great mobility with it. You can use it to jump around anywhere you need to. It's something that you'll learn with Winston, being able to aim his jump pack, but it can get you pretty much wherever you need to go, in and out of danger, for sure.
Right, so it's important to point out that it is aimable, so it's not completely obvious when you use it. Sometimes you just think, oh, it goes this much distance, But if you look perfectly straight up in the air and you jump pack, you go perfectly vertical and you'll come right down the same spot.
Right. So
you aim it.
You have a trajectory with it, and like I said, that is something that you will learn. It's really good to get long range with it. You kind of aim a little more up than out. Just something you have to kind of play with to get used to with Winston.
Right. So let's talk about more about his kit. On the PC, keybound E default barrier projector.
Yeah, and this is another, a big part of his kit, and it really is something that a lot of players have to kind of figure out. So his barrier projector, it has 600 health. It lasts for about 6 seconds. It's a pretty big focal point for him because there's so many different ways you can use this ability for your team and for yourself. So it's really something that you want to play around with. Don't just kind of relegate yourself to using it in only one way.
Right. So it had 1,000 health back in the early beta. So it's at 600 now, and they also made a change to cooldown. So the cooldown begins when the shield is depleted or the duration.
Right.
Yeah, the 6 seconds is over. So you can obviously do damage, 600 damage, or 6 seconds, whatever sooner. And then the cooldown begins after that.
Yeah, they made that change, I think, a lot of because of the compositions that were coming out. The double Winston, sometimes even triple Winston, just being really strong with that shield the way it was. So, I think it's in a really good place right now. Some people feel the shield is a little bit weak. It could just be that they're used to the way it was. But I think it's in a really good position right now. You can definitely use it very effectively, moving in and out of the shield, moving your enemies in and out of the shield, and just kind of ring around the rosy with them, and you can get some really good use out of the barrier projection.
Right, Winston's barrier is really good. You're seeing Winston in competitive, usually more than one, and his barrier is definitely one of those reasons. You just gotta be smart with it, and you got to take advantage of it, right? So it's kind of like the Reinhardt player that kind of stands out in the open with the shield up. And he's not pushing, he's not going towards the objective, he just has a shield, and that's it, right? You can't use that shield, Winston shield, the same way, right? When you drop it, you take advantage of it. It's not just going to soak up bullets.
You definitely have to be smart with the way you use it. So, just with any other ability in the game, it's something you have to learn and just get better with over time. But you really want to make sure you're thinking about where you're placing it and how you're using it. So, it is stationary on its own, so you want to keep that in mind. So you don't want to kind of put it out in the middle of nowhere if you're only fighting there for half a second. It doesn't really do you much good there.
Right, and you could put it on a payload, and it moves with a payload. And,
right.
And people probably know we're talking about the projector, right? The barrier. It's a really, really big dome-looking. It's blue if it's a friendly, and it's red if it's enemy. And some new players actually didn't realize this, but you can shoot through barriers if it's a friendly barrier. So a Reinhardt shield or a Winston shield, you can shoot through it.
Right. So that's another thing to keep in mind when you're placing it. Make it to your strength. Play to your strength. Get the enemy to come inside the shield or, be on the outside depending on where you are, where your friendlies are. But you can definitely, bring them into the position you want and really use it to your advantage. Shooting through the shield is definitely a good way to use it.
So let's talk about his ultimate. His ultimate's Primal Rage.
Yeah, it's a very fun ultimate in my opinion. It's really interesting to play around with the Primal Rage. I think a lot of people have a little bit of a hard time with it when they first use the ability. It's not like some of the other ultimates. I find it a little bit harder to aim melee when you're using the ultimate. I don't know about how you feel about it, but it's something you definitely have to get used to. The range is a little bit awkward with it, but if you know how to use it, it can be destructive for
right,
your
so
team.
It's like some other heroes where when you use your ultimate, it kind of changes your whole kit, kind of like Bastion or something like that, right? So it lasts for 10 seconds. You will get 500 additional health, so that'll put you at 1,000. And your melee attacks, they become more of like a cleave, a little AoE in front of you.
Yeah, it's
40
it's a frontal
damage.
cleave. It buffs your melee damage when in there, and that is basically the brunt of your damage. You are able to jump a lot more often. I believe it's 2 seconds instead of the normal what is it?
Right.
6
So
seconds?
your jump pack cooldown gets reduced to 2 seconds. Correct.
Right.
It's
from 6 seconds
also
to 2
important
seconds,
to point out that his melee knocks people back.
Right.
Very important.
Yeah. It definitely knocks people back. It can be used on maps to knock people off of the maps. Really good way to use it, definitely. And it's also important to know that it's really good to be used when you're at lower health. You don't use his ultimate when you're at full health because of the additional 500 health that you're gaining. You will actually come up in health. So a lot of people use it as a last resort to keep themselves up.
Right. So a lot of people don't realize it does fully heal you to 1,000 health. So you could have 10 health, pop your Primal Rage, and you're going to be at 1,000 health. It heals you 100%. Every 2 seconds, you're going to be able to leap, and you're throwing everybody off the objective. Pretty much, it's just chaos, and that's what Winston does.
Right. I mean, it's perfect for Winston. It is the epitome of how his character plays. He is such a harassing tank. He doesn't do crazy amount of damage, but if you use him right, he can really just completely take apart the enemy team, disrupt everything, and just make it impossible for them to do what they want to do.
Right, and also important to note that you cannot use your barrier when your ultimate is up.
One thing you definitely want to keep in mind about the barrier. So if you're gonna ult, and you're gonna be in that position for any length of time, I mean, you definitely want to put down your barrier. You probably want to put it down in any situation if you have it up. But definitely if you're on the point or on the payload where you're going to be, you want to put it down before
it's kind of one of those things where it's like, okay, I have 2 more seconds left on my barrier. I'll wait 2 seconds, drop it, and then I'll Primal Rage.
Yeah, it's not really a bad thing to be using before you ult. So definitely something you can use to your advantage.
Right, so we covered all of his abilities. Let's talk a little bit more, open discussion, how he's able to do what he does, how to do it well.
Right, so I think I mentioned previously I play a lot of Winston. He's probably my favorite tank. I mean, I kind of recently started adding some Roadhog just because I really like the hook, but Winston is probably my favorite tank. I like to play him very aggressively. It's one of those things where you just kind of get used to how things work, and for me, he's just such a perfect tank to be able to move in and out and just take apart some of the weaker characters, the Genjis, the Tracers. He does really good damage to them. He can take them down pretty quickly, and it really catches them off guard, especially when you shift or you jump pack right into them. It can really surprise them and catch them off guard, and you do some amazing work with him if you know how to get in and out.
Right, so the basic strategy, good rule of thumb with Winston is when you put down your barrier, what you want to do is obviously have that barrier divide you and your friendlies and your enemies. That's pretty basic, right? But when you have an enemy that comes in your bubble, you go outside the bubble, right? So you're constantly having that barrier in between. You're kind of weaving in and out, especially like a 1v1 scenario, right?
Yeah, you definitely want to keep them on the other side of the barrier at all times as much as possible to get the full use out of the barrier.
Right, so you're just doing a little weaving action. So, I mean, typically it would look something like Winston jumps in, finds a little spot to put his barrier, holds down left click, weaving in and out, and by the time the barrier is up, you usually already have a jump pack. So you could go back, because you remember, it's an engaged tool, but it's also a disengaged tool as well. So you can make that choice then, okay, do I need to disengage? Do I engage even further?
Yeah, with Winston, having such a low cooldown on his jump pack allows that high mobility, and so in situations where you're either fighting multiple opponents or you're having to stay on, say, the point to keep things going, you can jump in, do some damage, put down your barrier, stay in as long as you can, jump pack right back out, and pick up a health pack or something like that, and keep yourself sustained even on your own.
Right, and his Tesla cannon doesn't behave the same way as like hard bullets do, right? It's like an energy weapon.
Right, it's an energy weapon, so it's really good against shields. It isn't hindered by shields. I love playing against Genjis. So many times new players get into the game and they see the Tesla cannon coming at them and they just put up their reflect. No mas, no good.
Yeah, so if you have a Reinhardt behind a shield, you can just shoot him right through the shield.
Right. So
or other Winstons have their barriers, you can shoot straight through that. And it's also important to know what things could penetrate your own shield, right? So Symmetra's big, slow-moving orbs or alternate fire, they'll go right through.
Yeah, and they could take a nice chunk of health with it. So definitely do not be fooled by that. They will not be stopped by your barrier. Do not attempt to hide behind them.
Yeah, but speaking of Symmetra, Winston's pretty good against Symmetra because he could just go in their little hive nest and just left click and they all go bye-bye right away.
Yeah, the cleave with the Tesla cannon just mops up all her turrets instantly. And she is, she's a support, so she's real low health, so he is definitely a very good counter for a Symmetra.
Yeah, so some other counters, the snipers come to mind. Winston's very good against snipers.
Love jumping into windows, getting into the sniper nest and just tearing them apart. They have nowhere to go. They're usually, if they're in that window in like King's Row, they have nowhere to go. They're enclosed, so.
Right, your barrier is very good anti-sniper, so you could drop it on your own sniper, you could drop it on your friendlies, and they're safe from the snipers. And yeah, Winston could just charge head first, and he could 1v1, Widowmakers and Hanzos pretty efficiently.
Yeah, he does good work against them and surprise the crap out of them, especially at Widowmaker when they're in snipe. You catch them off guard. They got nowhere to go. That's game.
Right, so counters. The first one that comes to my mind is Reaper.
Yeah, Reaper is pretty much the anti-tank in most cases. I can still see situations where you can still win that fight for sure, but you just have to be very careful. He takes a lot of damage against.
Yeah,
Reaper's
he'll do more
shotgun,
damage.
so.
Yeah, he'll do a lot more damage than you will.
Yeah, it's definitely not somebody you want to go toe-to-toe with. So definitely don't be afraid to use that shift, get in and out, get away as fast as you can.
Right, and McCree also comes to mind. Pretty hard counter.
McCree's a pretty hard counter to most characters in the game. He has that flashbang. He does some really good work. So, again, another person you want to keep in mind, watch out for sure.
Right, so Winston... he's a tank. He disrupts. He just causes lots of chaos. He's able to knock people off the points or the payloads off the map altogether. So just be aware of where you're putting your barriers. Right, taking advantage of that, putting them in, bottlenecks or hallways. You want to protect your friendlies.
Yeah, if you can catch him in a room as well with your ultimate, you can definitely do some damage. They got nowhere to go. So just keep in mind where you're using your ultimate and how you're using your ultimate. Another thing, just keep in mind, since you do have such high mobility, it's probably a good idea to take good note of where the health packs are, especially the large ones, as he does have quite a lot of health. So keep in mind for sure.
Yeah, and a good rule of thumb is always, preferring the higher ground, and Winston's able to get to the high ground pretty easily.
Yeah,
navigate maps.
Yeah, his jump pack can get him, like I said, anywhere you want to go. So the high ground is always something that you can use to your advantage. I find a lot of new players not figuring that out quite yet. Still something that they'll figure out.
Right. So, you have anything else to talk about Winston?
I think we covered the basics.
He is a pretty straightforward guy.
Yeah, he is definitely one of the more straightforward tanks. Another reason why we kind of went with him first. A lot of it is just going to be figuring out how you play Winston and how you go against certain other players in the game. So it's one of those things. He is a pretty safe character to kind of jump in and play and have a lot of fun with. So just jump in and just kind of keep in mind the little things that we did mention and just go from there.
Success will be had. But yeah, he's definitely a newbie friendly.
Yeah, he is a staple. He is one of those tanks you just hop in and have some fun with for sure.
All right, so let's talk about moving on to esports. Obviously, the game was not playable this week, so not a ton of things going on, but we can congratulate the victor of the Overkill.gg tournament, which we recommended last week.
Right, and if you caught that, some amazing games. NA representing for sure. Cloud9 victory.
Right, so Cloud9 was victorious. It was a best out of 9 and it went 8 games, so it was a really good series.
It was a really good series.
Yeah, a lot of maps we don't normally see because we, best of 9. We don't usually see that many games.
Yeah, not a lot of some of the maps that we saw, so it was definitely interesting to see how they went about some of the maps. Definitely an eye-opener if you haven't seen some high-rated play on some of the maps.
But yeah, I've really enjoyed watching Cloud9. They were formerly Google Me. They were signed March 9th. And it's just nice to see. I mean, Cloud9's a big organization. Most people recognize the name. But it is cool to see the progression, how they got picked up. And they've been extremely successful.
Yeah, I mean, Google Me came on the scene. They were doing really well from the very beginning, and Cloud9 picked them up super early. So they've been doing good work all along. Definitely a great team. So
yeah, crazy good win percentages. Number 1 North America team. And they won the Kings of the Beta tournament. Number 1 worldwide.
Yep, number 1 to beat, number 1 to look at. Great win percentage. I think they won their last 15 games in a row. Crazy good game.
That's pretty good. Definitely looking forward to more competition and more games coming up.
Right. So if you don't know, definitely check them out. They are the NA number 1 team. Overkill, GG, Victory, King of Betas. So I mean, if you're not familiar with them, you can kind of check them out. Grego on the support for the most part. Surefour, probably the more well-known of the team members. Adam, Reaver, and Kai and Debit. So definitely check them out.
Yeah, a bunch of great players. Definitely looking forward to what we see in the future with those guys. And in addition, we actually had a new team been announced. Right?
Yeah, a new organization, Rogue, signing a few of the players previously from IDDQD, including, I believe it was Tavik and IDDQD himself.
Right, so we just learned that we kind of knew something was going on. But yeah, so they came out and said, a brand new organization. They're called Rogue. And they have a lot of the more prominent players in the European scene. So it's a North American-based organization, Rogue, but, the Overwatch team they made is, Europe. Half the team is Swedish and half French.
Yeah, I mean, and if you haven't seen any of their past plays, IDDQD was considered the best team in Overwatch in the beta at the time, just before they separated. Tavik mainly considered probably the best player in the beta so far, and he is their star player. He will be definitely someone you want to keep an eye on. So it'll be interesting to see this new team. High hopes for them. So
right, and just to add, a lot of people know Raffle Gator. He's the coach. He's a popular streamer on Twitch, bringing a community, fostering that community on the Twitch.tv.
Yeah, so again, it's all new team for the most part. Some people we know, some new people. So it'd be interesting to see. I'm looking forward to it for sure. We can use all the competition in this game that we can get for sure.
Right, so not that much esports coverage, like I said, because the game's not playable. But, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I could do that. I watch the tournaments. I could hold down left click on Winston. Or, I have some buddies. We could form a team. We just really wanted to encourage all the people out there. Right now is a perfect opportunity. Brand new game, and there's good opportunities. I mean, the first weekend the game comes out, there's an open tournament right here in our backyard.
Yeah, an open tournament, which is definitely interesting. It's totally open. You can just apply. I'm sure there's a fee of some sort, but being that it's open tournament, hopefully we'll get to see some new faces that we haven't seen before. So if you're interested in trying to get into the tournament scene, I mean, you don't really have much to lose. Just try it out, see how things go.
Right, and that was we talked about it last time, but the esports arena right here in Southern California.
Right, so definitely
we need more places like that, by the way.
A lot more places.
So if you're an investor and you don't play video games, you're too old for that kind of stuff, you could build buildings like the one over here.
Yeah,
more esport buildings.
The more the merrier, in my opinion. So definitely looking forward to that. Hopefully some new faces. So.
Yeah, because North America, I mean, we don't have a ton of teams yet, but we're going to have so many new people. I mean, the beta was very limited on the player pool, so I'm expecting tons of new faces, tons of new talent. And, I mean, I hear, rumors of teams already being formed. It's definitely going to be fun.
Yeah, I mean, with the millions of players that were in the open beta, I can't imagine that we won't get a lot of new faces. So, again, try it out, see what happens. I mean, it's an awesome game. Hopefully we'll see some new people get in really soon here. So
right, so join the Discord. Reach out, go on the Reddits, open up. When you play your games, talk to people, and you'll be surprised. A lot of people want to hang out, group
just
up.
Communicating is gonna do wonders.
Because
for that,
a lot of people ask, how they get into competitive. I mean, don't ask me. I'm not a pro player, but I mean,
it would seem to me communicating
put yourself
is
out
going to
there,
be, one of the first things you can do. So definitely check it out. So, and I think that's going to do it for us on this week. Thanks for listening again. We will have a show next week, so look forward to that. And again, any feedback that you guys might have, we'd be definitely looking forward to checking out anything you guys have to say. So just send us an email at aheroeswelcomepodcast@gmail.com, and we will do our best to reply to all the emails that we get for sure.
Right. We thank you again to all the people who have reached out to us already. Like Andrew said, we definitely try to reach out to everyone. We are on Twitter. We have the info in the show notes below. But whatever's easier for you guys.
Yeah, definitely check us out. Here's Welcome Podcast @gmail.com. Two Moon Studios Twitter. Thanks again.
All right, till next time.
Next time.